comment that, well, even the Pope refused care at the end. And I said, wait a minute, Father. I said, the Pope refused antibiotics. I said, you're talking about stopping any kind of, feeding and starving this man to death. I said, let's not get mixed up here about what happened, with the Pope. The interesting thing was, and I said to Bess, as this started to unravel, it was every single day this woman was deluged with people in this institution. We're talking about the social worker, the priest, the doctor, some of the nurses. Actually, some of the nurses I could tell were very leery of what she was being told. But it was every single day. And I was calling Bess, honestly, 2, 3, 4 times a day, because I'm like, you will never believe what happened now. Or this one said this. So what happened was his care there was so poor that his bed sore got huge, and he got septic, which, I mean, everybody knows here what that means. He got very ill. His fever went up to 103, and the nurses phoned the doctor this one Friday. He said, I do not want him taken to the hospital, and I do not want him to get antibiotics. The nurse called Mrs. L., who's the wife, who called me. I said, wait a minute. I said, you're the wife. Once again, you got to either call them and tell them you're in charge, okay? Well, by the time she called, after this, because I called Bess, and, by this time we were also discussing things with a lawyer who was associated with the diocese. I said, you need to call the nurse back, whoever asks, who's ever on call. You tell her you're making the decisions for your husband, and if they don't follow your decisions, you're going to hold them responsible. By that time, the shift had changed, and the nurse who had come on, thank God, had said, I don't care what this doctor says. I'm sending this man to the hospital. And so, thank God Mrs. L didn't have to get really aggressive. So anyway, he was admitted to St. Francis ICU with MRSA. He was very, very ill, and he pulled through it. And I remember going in to see him, and I said to her, I said, honestly, I said, I want you to be prepared. I said, he is so sick that I really don't think he's going to make it through this. And when he did, I remember saying something to her that she quoted to me a year and a half later, that she remembered, and I vaguely remember saying it. I said, I said to Mrs. L, there is a person in there who's fighting for his life. I don't know if I could have lived through that. He was very ill with MRSA. 5 minutes, okay. So it was interesting. Again, St. Francis started pushing her to, you need to, think about stopping his tube feedings, blah, blah, blah. Where is he going to go? As soon as she said, no, I'm not going to do that, then there was a lot of pressure on, well, you have to get him out of here. You have to find a place and get him out of here. So we had to deal with the social workers who weren't really being helpful because we weren't feeding into their agenda. He waited, I think it took us about 2 weeks before there was a nursing facility at Riverside that accepted him. And honest to God, the whole scene changed. As soon as he was taken to the long-term facility at Riverside, which is actually under Christiana Care, the nurses were lovely. They were like, total care. The bed sore was like huge. And the care, they brought in a wound specialist nurse. It was just so different than Franciscan Center of Brackenville. It was almost like a nightmare, really. In fact, at one point, they restricted me from coming in to see him. That was kind of funny. Wow. So they said, get out of here. And I'm like, okay. Because, and I said to Mrs. L, I said, you're not following their agenda. And their agenda is that you need to stop this. You need to let him die because they've decided that's the best thing for him and you and the kids and them, I think, too, because they kept bringing up that this was such a strain on the nursing staff, which I thought was funny because, you know, the nurses at Riverside said, he doesn't need a lot of care, you know, we just, you know, turn him and go in there and make sure the tube feedings. So, then I remember Riverside, Christiana Care brought out the old Three Bakers Theater, and they made it into a state-of-the-art chronic care facility. It's gorgeous. He moved there because he was at Riverside. They moved the people over to this. It's gorgeous, and the care there, you know, for the past year and a half has been great. But it's very interesting how, you know, I say to people now, watch out what goes on with your loved ones in hospitals. And do not assume that because they're in a Catholic facility that they're going to get Catholic care. I remember I guess too, I started worrying because both of them were Hispanic, they had a Hispanic name. I really felt that there was discrimination going on too. And I couldn't put my finger on it, but I felt it. Even with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, he had excellent insurance too. And they were pressuring her, listen, you know, we're not going to pay for this. You know, none of this care is going to help him. And I'm like, wait a minute, he's worked for years as a Delaware State teacher. And these people are being treated and taken care of like they're not human beings. My biggest worry through the whole thing was that she was a very quiet, non-assertive person, and I mean, I just kept plugging along, saying, you know, insist on that, ask for this. And I was in and out of the hospital that whole summer a lot, and sometimes I used to think, she's never going to get assertive, she's never going to, you know, begin to fight, and yet I was wrong. I just want to let you know, she's a very aggressive person, a very assertive person at this point for his care. What she really just needed was someone to stand by her and say, this is not, you know, good medical practice, this is not legal nursing practice. Never give up on anybody in your family who is very, you know, like, quiet person, a non-assertive person. She's actually now, I switched schools, she's actually a teacher in the school I'm in now, so I can kind of keep up on what's going on. But, you know, my greatest joy is to see her personality blossom into someone who is now standing up for her husband and making sure if there isn't, you know, something right, she wants to talk to the nurse supervisor, or she wants to talk to the doctor. And she's, you know, she's the person, I said, you are the person in charge, you're his wife. No one else is. You know your husband much better than anybody else. You know what he wants. He's still alive after 2 years. The children are able to go in and see their dad. I'm sure it's hard on her. She's a saint. She stops in to see him every day on her way home. So she's in there almost daily. She does have an aunt from Peru who helps her with the children, so that's a blessing. But she loves him. And, you know, at that time, it was more than she could bear to have people telling her what to do and what, you know, she needed to do for him, that it wasn't about her, it was about him, like they knew what he wanted. And honestly, I was traumatized. I told Bess that. I really haven't been able to talk about it myself. There was so much, I can't even say in 20 minutes, the amount of phone calls we made was with Bess, you know, referring us to a neurologist, a lawyer. We even got the bishop involved at one point. It was like a fight. It was a battle. And it was pretty traumatic. This is my first time I talked about it. And yes.
Kathleen, I don't know if she was there, but one of the nurses on the Pro-Life Coalition board, head nurse on one of the floors at Riverside, And I was just thinking, you know, there it is, it's a public facility, a lot of people have grave concerns about Christiana Care, but I'm sure that over the years she taught by example, and if she's not still there, that she had to have had a tremendous influence on the people that work there, and them having, you know, respect for people
yes,
who need care.
yeah, the nurses, especially at the new facility, have a lot of respect for her, for the wife, and she has a lot of respect for them because he's really being taken care of. It's a great place, it's state of the art, and the funny thing was, we tried to find a place for him, for Mr. L, and we were calling, and you know, St. Francis was really belligerent. You need to get him out of here. You have to get him out of here. No one's paying insurance at this point. I'm like, wait a minute, he has insurance. And it was funny because God really brought about this nice facility. Because he went to Riverside, and all of a sudden she goes, oh, they're opening a new place. And I'm like, really? And she said, yeah, it's state of the art. And there he was within a week or two. He was moved there. I went in and I was like, this is gorgeous. I never would have come up with this. But, you know, the pressure from medical personnel, even really the whole staff at Brackenville was just, it was horrific. I'm telling you, I hope there's nobody here with a person there, but I would have had to live through it, really, to believe it. Like I said, at one point they threw me out because I was standing up for her and him. And they, you know, because they saw her as someone whose English was very limited, at that time it was, now she really tells them off in English. They saw her as someone I think they could influence. And she had enough sense, even when the priest was assuring her that this was okay in the church and that they could provide him a peaceful, you know, pain-free death. She realized that this was not church teaching. She came from a country, you know, that was very Catholic, very traditionally Catholic, and she knew something was wrong, and she's still plugging away, and he's pretty much still alive and healthy, but you know, he's still in the facility. So